Classics Narrated, one name, one deal, one spin. Let the wheel turn.
Rumpelstiltskin. A Fairy Tale by the Brothers Grimm. There was once a miller who was poor, but he had a beautiful daughter. Now it happened that he had to go and speak to the king, and in order to make himself appear important, he said to him, "I have a daughter who can spin straw into gold." The king said to the miller, "That is an art which pleases me well. If your daughter is as clever as you say, bring her tomorrow to my palace, and I will put her to the test." When the girl was brought to him, he led her into a room in which there was a great deal of straw, gave her a spinning wheel and a reel, and said, "Now set to work, and if by tomorrow morning early you have not spun this straw into gold, you shall die." Then he himself locked up the room and left her in it alone. So there sat the poor miller's daughter, and for the life of her could not tell what to do. She had no idea how straw could be spun into gold, and she grew more and more frightened, until at last she began to weep. All at once the door opened, and in came a little man, and said, "Good evening, Mistress Miller. Why are you crying so?" "Alas," answered the girl, "I have to spin straw into gold, and I do not know how to do it." "What will you give me," said the mannikin, "if I do it for you?" "My necklace," said the girl. The little man took the necklace, seated himself before the wheel, and whir, whir, whir 3 turns, and the reel was full of gold. Then he put another reel on in its place, and whir, whir, whir 3 turns, and the second reel was full too. And so it went on until the morning, when all the straw was spun, and all the reels were full of gold. By daybreak the king came, and when he saw the gold he was astonished and delighted, but his heart grew still more greedy of gain. He had the miller's daughter taken into a larger room full of straw, and bade her spin that also in one night, if she valued her life. The girl sat down in tears, and when the door opened again, the same little man came in and said, "What will you give me if I spin that straw into gold for you?" "The ring on my finger," answered the girl. The little man took the ring and again began to turn the wheel, and by morning all the straw was spun into glittering gold. When the king came in the morning and found all this glittering gold, he was even more greedy than before, and he had the miller's daughter taken into a still larger room full of straw, and said, "This you must spin tonight, and if you succeed, you shall be my wife." When the girl was alone, the little man came again for the 3rd time, and said, "What will you give me if I spin the straw into gold for you this time also?" "I have nothing left," said the girl, "but my firstborn child." "That may never be," said the mannikin, "but I will take it all the same. If you become queen, your child shall be mine." The girl knew not how this could be, but she gave her promise, and the little man again spun the straw into gold. When the king came in the morning and found all as he had wished, he took her in marriage, and the pretty miller's daughter became a queen. A year after, she brought a beautiful child into the world, and she never once thought of the little man. But suddenly he came into her room and said, "Now give me what you promised me." The queen was shocked and offered the little man all the riches of the kingdom if he would leave her the child. But the little man said, "No, something living is dearer to me than all the treasures in the world." Then the queen began to lament and cry, so that the little man pitied her. "I will give you 3 days' grace," said he. "If you know my name by that time, then shall you keep your child." And he left her. The queen sent out a messenger over the whole kingdom to inquire after unusual names and to bring them to her. When the messenger returned, she began to repeat the most uncommon and curious names she had ever heard, and the little man came every evening to see if she knew it. But every time she said a name, he answered, "That is not my name." On the second day she began with all the comical names she could hear of, and she sent to inquire about them, but the answer was, "That is not my name." On the third day the messenger came back again and said, "I have not been able to find a single new name, but as I came on my journey home, I got to the top of a high mountain, and round the foot of it was a little house. Before the house a fire was burning, and round about the fire a funny little dwarf was hopping on one leg and singing, 'Today I bake, tomorrow brew. The next I'll have the young queen's child. Ha! Glad am I that no one knew that Rumpelstiltskin is my name.'" You may imagine how glad the queen was when she heard the name, and when the little man came in the evening and said, "Now, lady, what is my name?" She said at first, "Is your name Conrad?" "No." "Is your name Harry?" "No." "Perhaps your name is Rumpelstiltskin?" "The devil has told you that! The devil has told you that!" cried the little man, and in his anger he plunged his right foot so deep into the earth that his whole leg went in. And then, in rage, he pulled at his left leg so hard with both hands that he tore himself in two. And that was the end of Rumpelstiltskin.
That's it. The imp tore himself in two. The queen kept her crown, the girl kept her child, and the wheel kept spinning. Dark Classics Narrated is your nightly candle in the dark. We read what the light won't touch. No AI voice, no ads. Just one human, one mic, one story, full text, every time. We drop new Grimm, Poe, Lovecraft, Bierce, Shelley every single week. Hit subscribe, turn the bell on, because if you made it this far, the dark already knows your name.